Good morning, everyone. It's Joker, and today we are back with another slime video, and we have another tier list. A third one to add on, because I've had more than a few requests for a tier list of the free-to-play units, the units that they give out every meta, and how they fare, because now that we have the ability to purchase just about all of them from the Flashback Crystal Bazaar, and new players come in are like, who should I get out of here? I thought that now would be a good time, especially with the 1 year anniversary just around the corner, to put this tier list out so that newer players can use their flashback crystals wisely and really put them towards units that will actually make a difference and not other ones who have less of an impact on their boxes as a whole. Because some of these free-to-play units are actually really, really good, and some of them are unfortunately not that good. So it'd be a shame to spend everything on, let's say, Albus, because she's really not that great of a unit, but she is, Snick waifu, which I do enjoy. So I would get her because I like her, but is she very useful for most players? No, not really. So we're here to solve that problem. So, and we also have here the 5-star Wind Shuna. Technically is a free-to-play unit. Technically she was the first free-to-play unit because we got her, as soon as you open the game, you have quests to get her. And so when the game first dropped in late October, she was the first free-to-play unit. And because, we didn't have a meta back then. The next meta that came was Dark, 5 days later, if not 2. But she was the first free-to-play unit, so we will start with her. And I think that she's a solid B tier. She has really, really high defense. Actually stupid high defense for an OG free unit. So she can put up a defensive wall, and her skill is, raising defense, which has taken a bit of a forefront on some Jubilees lately, the past 2 this month. More defense, less damage you take. Healing is also a big factor, so if defense becomes a much more meta thing, she might have a little bit more relevance because she has a 25% defense buff, and she's got an orb change. So already right there, she has one good skill, which is the orb change, and one circumstantial skill being the defense buff. But she's AoE, she's not meant to do damage, she's obviously all these units are free to play, but you don't even have to buy her with crystals, so you just do missions to get her. So she maybe belongs in S tier because she actually don't have to do anything as far as grinding away flashback crystals. But we'll put her in B tier for now. We'll move on to her fire counterpart, which is another orb changer, and she is also kind of B tier. Let me pull her up because I don't use Fire Shuna that much. So she's a green to blue, and then Wind Shuna is a blue to green. So you got back to back right there. And then her second skill, Fire Shuna, is it cleanses poison, which not often used, and then increases her own poison evasion rate by 10%. So not the team like Dark Shion, because as we found out during this Jubilee that's about to end tomorrow, poison dodge from Dark Shuna was pretty useful for normal 3. So that was cool. Not this one though. It's only her own poison evasion, it's only 10%, and it cleanses poison, which you would have to use after the fact that you've got poison, so you're already going to take that little bit of damage over time from that first turn where the snake or whatever puts it on you. So Fire Shuna, very, very low on the totem pole. Actually, should probably be down here in C. Yeah, we'll put her in C for now. At least she has a defensive skill that actually matter. Water Ranga. So the first water meta was full of debuffing, kind of like how the space meta is now. The original Velzard had Frostbite, just like the new Velzard. We had a whole bunch of defense down, pierce down, and that's what this Ranga did, was give the pierce resistance down that we have now found to be very common if you have Light Rimuru. So decreases guard power by 50%, and then decreases pierce resistance by 30, which is pretty good. It's a 30-point skill though, and honestly, if you have Light Rimuru, you're using him instead, instead of Ranga. And his second skill, counterattack rate down by 40%, not useful. Green gauge increased by 10%, circumstantial if you're running a team that, you know, runs greens. He also, I would think he's kind of a D tier. He's AoE. Both of his skills are pretty hit and miss. You don't really use him for many strategies, whether it be Jubilee or Crucible or, you know, Tempered Edge. Like, he just doesn't really fit in anymore. If you're running the OG water team, you have better options. And if you're running the OG water team, it means you probably have the water 2.0 meta, of which case, just use that, because it's much, much better than the first water meta. So, sadly, Ranga, our first D tier unit. Water Rimuru, let's just go ahead and put him up in S tier. He, you know, being water 2.0, is a huge upgrade over Water Ranga, and honestly, probably better than most of the water units that came out during Water 1.0, which is hilarious. He has his orb change, so green to blue, which is very useful. And then he has his orb, his like orb steal / change, where any orb that is his, he will turn to blue, which, you know, the water team runs on blues to get, you know, watermelon stacks on stacks on stacks. And so the ability to both, you know, convert his own orbs to blue and then also change greens to blue is huge. And it really factors into not only the water team, but, you know, even the Space 2.0 team, because you have, you know, Carrion, who is an orange to blue orb changer, so you have that side covered, and then you have Water Rimuru, who's covering the green side of orbs, and then you pretty much can almost run an entire hand of blues quite effectively. And then if you have, you know, Water Shuna to boost ult, she's also a blue to orange, or an orange to blue orb changer. So now you have triple orb changers, 2 of which are single targets, 2 of which that are, you know, giving support buffs to the team, and then you have Water Rimuru converting everything else. So he runs very, very well on any team that needs any kind of blue orb. So him being AoE doesn't really hold him back, because his skills are not meant to help people do damage. It's helped to get protection traits up and, you know, get other things active. So that, I don't think, is a fault for him. And I think he is easily our first S tier unit. Geld, also what I would consider an S tier unit. Strangely enough, also a blue converter. He is orange to blue, so he covers that side as well. And his skill, unlike Rimuru, where Rimuru converts all his orbs to blue, Geld converts any blue orb to the unit with the highest attack. Which, if you play your cards right, you can give an entire 6-card set of blues to, you know, Space Millum, or Water Hinata, or whoever, or Wind Diablo, because you're on the Wind team. It's kind of finicky that you have to play around with remembering who has the highest attack stat, but you should generally know who has a higher attack stat, unless you're running like a level 80 Wind Diablo and you have a level 100 hero and a level 100 Wind Millum next to him, and then they both have higher attack stats than him, even if he pops his attack boost. So it takes a little bit of thought of remembering where it's going, but it doesn't have to be blue orbs, right? If you have 3 Diablo orbs and there's 3 other blues over here that are just random people, you can use Geld to turn those 3 blues for whoever into Diablo, so then you have 3 orange and then 3 blue for Diablo. So you can still get 6 card sends, they don't have to be blue. But the fact that you can give a full orb send to your main DPS, especially if they have huge amount of buffs on them, is pretty powerful. So that's why I think that Geld is also a really, really, really good unit. Again, another AoE, but again, not meant to do damage. He's just there to give orbs to other people, so being AoE is not a detriment. Wind Xion, Wind 1.0 Xion, a unit that you very, very rarely use. So let me pull her up real fast. Is a self-healer for 25%, and then boosts greens damage by 5% up to 100, which it's not very common that it's actually never, ever going to happen that you get up to 100% green boost. So don't really be fooled by that big number being like, oh my god, I can make my greens do so much more damage. No, you don't. And then her second skill is pierce resistance for your team by 30%, which can have some viability in, EX conquests against Milim, because newer players will struggle against that. Older players, they can just brute force their way through it. You can 2-turn Milim if you really felt like it. But newer players are going to, feel the pain and suffering that is EX Space Milim Conquest. So having a unit with pierce resistance is helpful for that team. Her heal, again, going back to this Jubilee and maybe moving forward, healing may become important. We won't get a Win 3.0 meta for months. A long time. A very, very, very long time. We're 2 months removed from its 2.0, so we have a lot of metas to go through, and then we still have... We have 3 more metas to go through for 2.0, and then we start the 3s, and I don't think Wind will be up there very, very quickly. So it's going to be a while before we have another Wind Jubilee. That's going to matter of healing. So I'm going to put her down in C tier, because there are other units that if you summon, like the Chad, Gale Gibson, Earth Kurobe, who are Earth units, who have type advantage against Conquest Milim, who also have, defensive skills, pierce resistance, that can help you with that, where you don't necessarily need to farm the flashback crystals for Xion, and then her being type neutral definitely doesn't help her in that stage, because Milim doesn't give a crap who you are. If you don't have defense on, you're gonna die. You have the potential to get one shot. If she really hates one unit, she will kill it. Being type neutral is not helping her case. And the heal, again, is not terribly useful since it's only her. It's not a team-wide heal. And then the green damage boost is inconsequential. Don't even think about it. Frey is an interesting unit. Came out during Space 1.0. And a lot of people were eagerly awaiting Frey's reveal and her introduction to the game, because she is waifu. I don't care if she has bird legs. I don't care. She's hot. So we were pretty excited when we found out that she was our special blue orb converter. So 1 green orb and 1 orange orb into 2 blues. It really helps in a lot of places, especially the space meta, because it was, trying to get stacks of Veldora. And by having, a blue converter, especially a special blue converter, covered a lot of bases. Unfortunately, if you're going to try and run the space team at max power, you don't really have room for her, because you've got Carrion, who is orange to blue. You have now Wind Shuna, or Water Shuna, who is orange to blue. You have Space Milim, your DPS. You have Hero for the rewind. And then you would probably have Water Rimuru to cover the green orb side. And, his other conversion. You can run Frey. She is a single target. But she doesn't really bring much else. Her other skill is an orb giveaway, which we really are not fans of. Like, the orb steal is great, because you can directly, confirm who is getting what. You got 4 orbs over here, and you have 2 orbs over here. You bring Benimaru or Daggerel in, you steal those 2, and you have 6 Daggerel or 6 Benimaru. It is never in doubt. With the giveaway, you could have 2-2-2, or you could have 4-2, and you want to give it to, your character that has 4 orbs, and it gives it to the other unit. It's random. You don't have control over where those orbs go, so that's why it's a greatly inferior skill to the orb steal. But being a single target damage dealer, if you're just starting the game, you might need that. So she is actually our first single target alt on this list so far, which gives her value, and then her special conversion also gives her value, of which I would give her A tier. I don't think she's as useless as B tier, which B tier is not totally useless, but she doesn't really cross that threshold into what I consider S tier. Moving on, Misery, the newest space unit, Space 2.0. As you can see, these are going in order. She works really, really, really well with the new Guy and the rest of the team, You know, Guy is making 3 and 3 into greens. Misery boosts greens by a lot. She puts like 3 different skills into one, because she's boosting all gauges, she's boosting damage. I mean, all gauges, you know, skill points, protection gauge, and ult is really powerful. And it's a hefty, it's like 35%, I think, maybe 30. Let's check it out real fast. It's 30%, and then green damage by 15%. So that right there is a very powerful skill for 15 points. It's very cheap, and it's very useful, and especially on, you know, the Guy team where you're making full hands of greens, you're not really hurting for points that much most of the time, and her boosting, you know, everything just means you'll have even more greens next turn. And then her second skill is a heal. It's a single target heal, the lowest percentage ally, 35%, which can come into play, especially with this new Jubilee, because it's, you know, the first one to be AoE, first one to care about really how much health you have. So that can be effective, and she can be a very, very basic healer if you don't have Trainee or, you know, Valentine. But she is a single target healer. Just remember that. She's not an AoE healer. She is, however, another single target ult. So I think that she also belongs up in A tier with Frey. I think that her skills are better than Frey's, but not quite enough to go up into S tier. Albus, I mean, I clowned on her at the start of the video. She's pretty bad. She has the orb giveaway, which, you know, I just got done talking about, is a pretty bad skill. And her second skill is a stun dodge, which can be useful if you're starting out and you're trying to do, you know, Golem Conquest and Orc Conquest. But there are other units that have stun dodge, and they are ones that are geared specifically towards those stages, like what, Light Shuna versus the Orc, Fire Shizu versus the Golem. So there are units that are type advantage that have the dedicated stun dodge. If you don't have them, certainly you could bring Albus, but everything else about her is really not benefiting your team. Again, the giveaway is too random, she's an AoE ult, so I don't think that she's really anything to really grind on until you have nothing else to do, and no other units that are up in these two tiers to really work on. So I think she's safe D tier. Shinsha, our only unit of her, even though this game is, you know, marketed as, oh my god, look, Isis, voiced by Rie Takahashi, and Shinsha, who I don't remember her VA, but the daughter of Rimuru, right? You'd think she'd have a really, really big impact on the game, and therefore have a couple different units by, you know, the 1 year mark. And we have one free-to-play unit, and that's it. And we have no Isis at all, which I'm expecting an Isis for the anniversary. You can quote me on that. If we don't get one, I don't know what they're doing. Shinsha is pretty good on the Light 2.0 team. She's got the Light 15% attack boost, which is useful. It's definitely not as high as Leon's 50% Light boost, but it also only costs 15 points, which the Light team is all about, using a lot of skills very quickly and very early on to get that Pierce rate and Pierce power up on Xion. And so extra 15% Light power, pretty good. And she has, you know, she covers the other side of the orb change, where both Xion and Rimuru have orange to green single orb changes. Shinsha has the blue to green, and she boosts skill points on that orb change as well. So she's covering the other side that you need, because just in case you need it, Shizu Protector does do another 3 and 3 to green, just like Protector Guy does. She's a very, very good Protector. Shinsha works pretty well. Outside of the Light team, I guess you can use the single orb change. It's not really that great outside of it. And then the Light boost is really only for the Light team, so actually she might be too specific to put into A tier. So yeah, B tier for Shinsha. If she's on the Light team, you can definitely run her and be very happy with it. But outside of that, she doesn't bring too much to the table. She's, again, just too specific. You're not going to use a Light boost on an Earth team or the Space team, right? So, no point in there. Light Mirin. The original Light meta Mirin has an orb change. You know, it's 2 green to 2 orange, which is good, you know, good. There are actually not too many orb changers that do that, green to orange. There's like, I think 2, maybe 3 that I can think of off the top of my head. So she has her use. Her second skill does not really have much use, unfortunately. I don't remember it, but it's crit damage down. You can definitely use her, and I did use her against Conquest Ifrit, because he, you know, buffs his crit damage up. But outside of that, you know, crit damage, a lot of enemies nowadays, if they're going to crit, you know they're going to crit, and you have to kill them before they get there, or they just don't crit at all. So by using that skill, it really doesn't do much for you. 30% for 2 turns for 15 points is really strong, and again, if you need crit defense against Ifrit, her skill is pretty valuable. Outside of that, I'm gonna put her in C tier. I'll put her in C tier. Crit damage, orb changing, cool, but other units can do it. And then the final one that we have to add is Dark Benimaru, our first true meta free-to-play unit. And honestly, probably the best one for a while until we got to, I would say, Frey. Because one, it was our only single target ult until we got to Frey. And 2, he is actually kind of supposed to be a DPS, right? His first skill is, what, defense down? Which really worked well against Conquest Hinata. And being a single target ult, combining, you know, with like the other, like Dark Diablo, lowering dark resistance, so you could do some actually pretty good damage with him if you buffed him up the same way as you buff, you know, Diablo 1 up. And then his second skill is another stun evasion, which, like I said, other units have stun dodge. Benimaru has a stun dodge, and because he's a single target damage dealer and he lowers defense, he's a much, much better alternative than buying Albus. Right? He has a lot more overall value in the game than Albus does, besides Albus being waifu. So I think that Benimaru still has use and can still hold his own for a lot of stages. So I'm going to put him up in the A tier. He's the oldest meta unit, but I think he's still effective. So that is the current listing of free-to-play units in Slime right now. I will make sure to update this list with the other 2 tier lists every month nowadays. So the end of October, I will do the summonable battle units, the summonal protector, and then I will rank the free-to-play unit all in one video. But let me know what you guys think of this. Hopefully newer players find this helpful. Prioritize Rimuru and Geld, and then make your way on down, because these will bring you the most value by far over any really of these units, unless you're really not running a team based on blues, and then you can maybe focus on, you know, Misery or Benimaru. But older players, let me know if you agree with this tier list and if you would change anything. I am really interested to see some comments on this, because a lot of people rank these units very, very differently. So I expect to see some controversy in the comments. But again, let me know what you guys think. But that's it from me, guys. Take it easy, and I'll see you later.